everything she's talked about was, I'm exhausted because I'm trying to figure out how these people know me more than I know myself.
She's a non-conformist. So non-conformity is not popular.
I am angry, and I'm angry all the time because look at the state of the world. Like, there's a lot of things to be angry about as it comes to Black people and the treatment in this country. This person is colored and they're dirty. So when you see them, don't play with them. Now I got to do whatever to get in the graces of said people because they call the shots.
From the parts I did see, I realized that I don't really like Amanda. Hey, Conscious Crew, and we are back on the Conscious Creative Corner podcast. I am your host, Sia, the Transparent Therapist, and today we have no stranger in the corner. We have Mariah. You've seen her in the past episode with Risa Tisa, and she is back again today, y'all. What's up, Mariah?
Hey, back at it. Yes. How's everyone doing?
Good, girl. You are back by popular demand because I don't be out here on the streets of the social media streets. And so every time you send me a video, other people be like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? And I'm just like, nah, let me go dedicate 3 hours of my life again to something else. So today we are kind of debunking and not here to discredit, but just unpack the Amanda Seales interview. And I'm so glad that you're here today because, again, I love looking at these things through a clinical lens, just like you do. So right off the bat, how was it for you? Did you watch all 3 hours and 10 minutes maybe of the interview?
I did. I had to speed up a couple parts, but I managed to get through the whole thing. And I'm glad I did because, the beginning was a little different from the end. So it really is like stay tuned type of thing. But I don't think I have one single word to describe what the interview was. First of all, surprised that it was 3 hours. So it is kind of a lot to unpack. So I really don't have just one word to describe. I think there's parts where it was very like challenging. I think there was a lot of, discrediting on women's experiences and Black women's experiences. I think there was a point where, she was finally being heard. So it was like, damn, we always got to sort of like walk into a room and explain ourselves and prove ourselves before people could feel relaxed and calm and let us do what the hell we came here to do. And why is it like that? So it was a lot. I think that's how I could describe it. It was a lot.
Listen, I actually went in very blindsided because even when Club Shay Shay did the one with Cat Williams, I wanted to watch, but I realized that this is going to take up a lot of my time. So I did not watch the whole Amanda Seales. I fast forwarded through some spots. I am at some point going to go back and watch like the whole thing. But from the parts I did see, I realized that I don't really like Amanda. I love her. And let me tell you why I love her, because she is so candid in her just in her expressions and with how she breaks down her own reality and the reality of like what the world is actually is. And one of the last things I saw for her, she was talking about racism, and I think maybe Shannon was badgering her or maybe like being very combative, and she was just like, hey, before you respond, can you please acknowledge that I am technically like an expert in this field? Like, I went to school, I am a scholar, right? And I think that really helped credit some of the things that she was saying. Although the internet is going to be the internet, people are going to be internet gangsters and still want to say what they got to say. So I don't want today to be really long, but I do want to just kind of touch on some things that you saw, because we're on the corner, right? And in the Conscious Creative Corner, I always talk about relationships and trauma, whether they be romantic, platonic, familial. These are so important and core pillars for our growth. So I just want to unpack this episode and just talk about some of the relationships she talked about, and perhaps even some of the trauma she endured, and how we can help others listening to this episode kind of relate to this experience and maybe even just normalize it for them.
I don't even know where to begin. When we talk about like relationships and trauma, a lot of that was, her experience. And I guess I would start with saying, she is misunderstood for a lot of things. And it doesn't help that, people take one narrative and then spread it like wildfire. So, it's hard to dispute things when it just keeps trailing and trailing and trailing. I think this interview was for that, for her to get on a platform, speak about herself, her experiences, get, new people to understand who she is, know her for the first time. Also to lay to rest some of the things that have happened to her. And so she was seeking a safe space, it seemed like, to do that in the midst of like all the media and backlash that was happening to her. And it started off as an interview of like, how are you doing? She said, that's a loaded question because a lot has been going on, right? She used the word evolving. I'm evolving, from the information that I've gotten, from the slander that's come my way. I'm trying to make waves. So I would say, she had a life where it was, she said she had a good life. She was a kid involved in sports, great in school, very articulate from a young age. She was able to, correct wrongdoings in school. And that was like, what are you doing? Whether there were some adults who appreciated that. And then there were others who were like, you stepping out of your place. To her as a child, she didn't see it as she was stepping out of her place. She felt like this one teacher was singling her out, and she was the one Black kid in that class. So she was like, well, what do we call this? Right?
Yeah.
To her, that's racism, because if any other kid was doing that, would I be in this mess? Shannon Sharp looked at that and was just like, well, any teacher would feel some type of way if you're correcting them in the class. There could be some teachers like that, but again, that was not her job to understand that, I guess, as a child, is what she's saying. Like, it just looked like what it was to her. And I feel like that's where it started to being like the discrediting and the challenging and the combativeness in the interview, just right off the bat. Instead of just listening and hearing her out. Like, this could be her experience. It could be the experience of so many other children. And maybe we put a couple polls up, for this podcast, but it is that, are you okay with a kid correcting an adult, or a student correcting a teacher? Because you're trying to relay information and teach a slew of children, and it's going to be wrong information. And as we just said, we take one thing and it spreads like wildfire. So now all these kids just have wrong information. So is that okay? Or should a child stay in their place? Leave it to that. Right. So I think when it comes to like relationships, she talked about just like her experiences throughout her life. She's had great experiences, but a lot of what's been on display is what's negative about her relationships. And so that makes her seem like this difficult person to work with, difficult person to be around. She's always negative, always coming so strong, always angry about something. And I'll never forget, I think it was when she was on The Real, she brought up, I am angry, and I'm angry all the time because look at the state of the world. Like, there's a lot of things to be angry about as it comes to Black people and the treatment in this country. So what are we smiling about? We got work to do, right? And I feel like just a lot of us are not keen to that. A lot of us are like, let's just like, we got a lot of other problems in our own lives. So like, that's what I'm worrying about. And when I go out into the community, I just want it to be this fantasy world. So when she's coming with The Real, I don't even have the capacity to understand that, and want to learn about it, much less, somebody need to come save me. I can't be saving the country, but it starts with us. It starts with us banding together, to be able to make those changes and things that she's talking about. So she got a lot to be angry about, and she's telling us that in the movements that she's, put out, in her articulation of, hey, like, this is what's going on in the world today. This is what's going on with the students today. This is what's going on for Palestine. This is what's going on here. Like, she is putting out information for us to be ahead of what's going on and how this impacts us. And because her platform, especially Instagram, is just straight all of that, people are looking at her this one-sided and it's like, yo, this girl is angry. This girl is this, like, who would want to work with her? Every day she got some problem. Like, what's going on with her? Like, everybody chooses what they want their platform to be about, right?
Yeah.
And she also has this platform as a way of life, a way of living. And so she has other things she's going to promote about herself as well. If you tune into that, you would see many different facets of Amanda, right? She has a podcast. She has a game show. She's a comedy stand-up comedian. She is, on Patreon, pulling out content over there as well. So I feel like there's so many different sides of her, but she's choosing right now to highlight the state of the country, the state of the world, and that's what you're going to see. So relationships, are going to be all trivial and on, the hot seat at this point because we're talking about politics, right? She's not going to be liked by everybody because she's talking about some real shit that not everybody can talk about, right?
Yeah.
She's putting herself on the line to risk relationships, to risk businesses, deals with people, losing publicists, losing all these team members because I am standing with these people.
Right.
And now, I'm not invited into these spaces because I'm challenging this norm that you put together, right? There's always a threat on the status quo. Right? So she not trying to be a part of that, but I'm still standing for something right. And it's almost like I'm being punished for that.
Right.
She makes comments, thank you for the people that are following me and understand that. And then everybody else are like, we can see why, you're not invited to XYZ, da, 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 you difficult to work with, you this, da, da. All these articles start coming out, Essence, Degree, about what? What are you talking about? The fact that you say yes to the man?
And it's so crazy, right? Just to hear that other people are even painting her in that picture, like, oh, this is why she's like so hard to work with because she's using her voice. And honestly,
half of them people work with her.
Exactly.
Work with her.
Exactly,
how are you having
right?
commentary?
And so people just love jumping on bandwagons and just contributing to the narrative in a negative way. And I honestly felt for her in this interview. I know a few times she cried, I think. Maybe it was just once. But you could see
interview?
Yeah. I saw her get
a couple times. I don't know. She acted like a little gangster, so it's
but you could just see
the
the true emotion coming out because these are real experiences for her. And then I think at one point too, Shannon must have asked her something about, like when the publications come out, she was like, she had a whole breakdown. Breakdown because people are not realizing that she's a public facing figure, but at the end of the day, she's still human. And we're dehumanizing these people that are having these experiences, whether they're in Hollywood, politics, whatever. At the end of the day, they have the same bodily functions as we do. And so for you to put this person on a pedestal and then kick them down is crazy. Or if you never put her on a pedestal, but then still kicking her while she's down is still crazy because
what's the point?
Yeah, like exactly. What is the point? Because now you're trying to compare our two human experiences and that's not, it's not possible.
In addition to that, they're saying, you did this to yourself. So we're not kicking her down. It's more like, why are you crying and moaning? Like you did this to yourself. And those are the same people who don't even know anything about her, don't know the origin of some of the rumors. They're just spreading it like, where she was like that? Oh my God, I could see that because so-and-so happened, da, da, da. And when she's like, come with the receipts, nobody's bringing that back. Right? Or you found a way to misconstrue the story and that's what takes off. Why is this happening to her is what she's feeling, right? Why is this happening to me when it didn't go like that? Or because I'm a public figure, I share these truths about myself. You don't see half of these people in the industry talking about their experiences. So it just looks like, I'm the only one that something happening to. Right? Everybody needs to be honest about the shit they're going through, but everybody wants to paint this picture that everything is just roses, and gravy and great. But
transparency.
If I'm standing my truth and this happens to me, this situation happens to me, whether it's good or bad, like that's what you're going to see. And if it happens 10 times, then it happened 10 times. Right. But that doesn't mean I didn't have great things going on, but it's cool on social media and gossip world to just hit with the negative.
I applaud her for her transparency because you're right. Like not everybody is going to stand 10 toes down and live in their truth, right? And their authenticity. And I think at one point too, I think she was alluding to the fact that a lot of people were in their ego state where it's just like, I don't care what you're experiencing, I'm gonna get mine. Whereas I feel like Amanda really did come down, at least from what she portrayed in the interview, she came from a one down space where it's just like, how can I make you comfortable in all these settings, right? Which she then attributed to and correct me if I'm wrong, but attributed to like a mental disorder as well, where it's just like, hey, sometimes I don't know how to read the room, so I try to make you as comfortable as possible so you can then accept me, because she wants to be liked, she wants to be loved. And I don't know anyone on this earth who does not want to be liked. You don't wake up and say, I want to see how many people can get to hate me. That's crazy, right? And so even just taking the standpoint of, wow, here's this human that wants to be liked, and this is her, but she's still standing on authentic. She's still being authentic without trying to assimilate to like everyone else. Why are we demonizing her or weaponizing even her truth for that? I think it's insane. And I'm not here saying people are insane, but just the way in which people are thinking is it's not okay. People are going to have their opinions. Fine. But I just didn't like the way, and this is outside of the interview, I just didn't like the way people were just tearing her down, right? Because we and other Black women tearing her down, which was kind of crazy. Because these are the same Black women saying like, stand together, you know.
And need a paycheck too. So you're willing to basically do whatever for a paycheck, you know, like where's your moral compass, right? What are the values that you stand on, right? So you're making this article and saying, you know, all my friends know that I'm outspoken, but I ain't gonna show my ass, you know, and then people come back at me and say, this is what you get. You know, it's like, where did we even come from with that, right? You know, you can be someone that's direct and no bullshit, and people need to accept that as much as the person who is quiet, timid, and will just laugh to appease you. You know, it's two different things, and none of the two are disrespectful. So what is it, you know, about this likability means that I need to be, you know, soft and easy towards you for you to feel like you can give me the promotion or you can accept me in this space. If my qualifications say that I belong in this space, motherfucker, I belong in this space, you know? So it helps to have a great personality. But what is great personality? That could look like the quirky, you know, awkward girl. That could look like the ambitious and studious and eloquent, you know, vocab through the roof girl. It could look like somebody who is just like what we would deem like, you know, ghetto. She out here. I will get that report to you. That it could be however we present ourselves, but I got the job done. Like that's what you should be worrying about.
But
right?
We don't, right? Because we are
Because we are so into this society of what the white person look like. Do I look like I care?
Yeah. Eurocentric, and we have to fit that. So this is the whole premise of it, right? That racial trauma, that Eurocentric ideal that we have to fit this mold, and we as people of color, we as Caribbean people, we as African people, we as people have been fighting this battle, and then for us to feed back into it. What were you doing?
It's like we still don't own nothing of our own. It really does go back to that. We're not on nothing. So it's like, you know, still be, you know, don't do too much because they still the one who cut the check. You know, don't do too much because they just still ones that how we pay the bills, how we even got here, as if we owe them things still, right? When are we going to rise up to the occasion, be confident in ourselves, as she says, and take charge of things that we once owned, we created, and we excel in? When are we going to show up for ourselves in that way? So many of people have low self-esteem. So the point is like, I just need to keep my head down, do the work, and bills will get paid. We'll get the children by. We're doing the best that we can. There's so much opportunity out there for us if we felt like we could do it. So who in this industry is motivating us in that way when you have these articles that are quick to write about some shit they don't know about and people take to that, you know? We should do that analysis. With the other articles of go girl, hey, she did this, accomplished this, whatever. Are those popping off? But as soon as you write about somebody put themselves in a certain situation, so why is she crying? That's what people want to read.
What people want to read, but people also want something to be mad at. The negative emotions we feel are so much they're easier to foster than the positive ones. And I'm not sure why, but it is. And what I was saying was the cancel culture, right? Whereas I think she's not afraid to be canceled. I don't think she wants to be canceled, but I don't think a man is afraid to be canceled. Whereas everybody else is thinking like, this is where my money is coming from, which I get, right? But I feel like she is the front runner here, where I'm okay with being canceled because I know what I'm standing for. I know what
Exactly.
I'm not going to stand for too.
Mhm.
And I think a
Exactly.
lot of people have to move outside of that. And then I guess I'm getting spiritual here, but have to move outside of that and understand who it is that you really do serve. I think in the
Okay.
interview, she also
People can know
said,
themselves.
exactly, right? I think in an interview she was just like, I don't know if I don't know if she's always not drank or she just don't drink now, but she was like at one point she was maybe on a set with Issa Rae, and
Mhm.
there was like a producer who wanted them to do like an advertisement for some kind of alcohol beverage, and she was like, well, I don't drink. And
Mhm.
then maybe someone said something like, oh, don't be difficult, and y'all in the comment section let me know like what she said exactly, because I don't want to misconstrue her words, but she was just like, I don't feel comfortable doing this because I don't drink. And so I guess
Mhm.
people were
Ready
just
to ostracize her.
isolating her, right?
Mhm.
Until maybe I think it was a guy named Chris was just like, oh, well, I don't feel comfortable doing this too. So she didn't have to stand alone. But it's things
Mhm.
like that where somebody would have been like, oh, it's a bag at hand. Okay, I'm going to do it. Right. Even
Mhm.
if your value speaks against it. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you do have to know who you serve. You have to know what you stand for. And
Mhm.
anytime you fold, you no longer stand for that. And you can't argue that your value is this because your actions spoke otherwise. And I think
Perspective.
she's really
Perspective.
good at that, standing on her values. And
Mhm.
a lot of us just don't know how to do that. So when she starts to say these things, it's like she's putting a mirror up in front of us. And I think that's why a lot of people started to get angry, is because, well, I don't want to believe that, right? Because there is this mirror and she's the one, she's forcing you to look at yourself, right? Oh,
Mhm.
well, if I did
I
that,
think
that
it's
doesn't mean this.
Yeah, I think it's when you look on the outside looking into the fishbowl, it's just a bunch of hypocrite behavior, because you said something earlier about like, I don't know why this fosters, or, this festers, but, the joy doesn't thrive. It's because as a people, it's hard for us to see joy and hope when
Mm-hmm.
you've been suppressed and oppressed for so long. Somebody give you a compliment or a good job on doing that. Oh, all right.
You
You
can't
don't
accept it,
thrive
right?
in that. You don't thrive in that. It's uncomfortable getting compliments. And it really just comes from the historical background of we ain't shit, or we're only made to do this and you're only good for this. You ain't becoming nothing more. And that has translated in several different ways throughout generations upon generations till we here now, and it's still going on. So someone who is standing in their truth, someone who is confident, she know what the fuck is up. She knows how to present herself. Not every delivery is great, which she has said, but she knows where she's coming from. And a lot of people just not that confident in themselves. So people can't see the joy. People can't see, the good in things. But here's where the hypocrite part comes in. If you start telling them about themselves, eh, wait, like who you talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Where you coming from with us? We like that as people, da 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 da, right? Those who are conscious, those who are, in the good fight as well, are saying, kudos to you, Amanda, because you are putting us at the forefront at all times. Whether people
Yes.
fail to see the mission is that you are fighting for people. You
Right.
are fighting for the good of people, all people, most importantly, the Black people, but Black people so fucking ignorant. They are so into themselves. They are wanting to live in a fantasy because their struggle is so real instead of actually understanding their reality and trying to get out of that shit. You worry about what the media is talking about. And if it's not skits and memes and ha 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 ha, you're not satisfied. But here she is on the daily coming strong. You're like, I'm just tired of this girl. Like, why is she always angry? Why is she always this? Da 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 blah blah. We have the option to, you know, consume what we want. And if
Mm-hmm.
at some point she is too much for you that day, you can't lock it off.
Exactly.
You can't lock it off. But
What?
her message is still a positive one. Her message is still a needed one. Her message is still respectable, commendable, noble. It's something that we all need to hear. Whether you can't understand where she's coming from or you get into understand where she's coming from, it's knowledge, right? And if it's too much for your brain today, go watch them laughs, go watch the joys, right? She tries to do that for herself too. You think it's not like exhausting for her to put herself out there every day, fighting for people, bringing allyship, like that is something you don't take lightly. So she got to protect herself too. Let me go on a little vacation. Let me just turn off my comments for a bit. Because not everybody gonna understand what I'm fighting for, but I know what the
Right.
fuck I'm doing, and so I need to keep up. I just need people to understand where I'm coming from, to protect me, to understand like I'm not here to bitch and moan about people. I'm here to talk to the people and let y'all know like we need to do better.
Yeah.
So why is it that we want to stand for less, want to live in mediocrity, and then when somebody tells you about your ass and that you ain't shit and you need to start doing better, you mad?
Because we just don't know how to take it. We want to dish it, but we can't take it. And
Mm-mm.
I don't know. It's kind of even going back to the interview too. At some point, I felt so torn watching it because for those of y'all out there, I love me some Issa Rae. Okay, I really do. And I remember watching Issa Rae when I was in not grad school, undergrad school, because she had this series called Awkward Black Girl. You ever seen that, Mariah? Awkward Black Girl?
Heard of it, but I never watched it.
Oh my God. Me and my girl Susanna used to watch it all the time faithfully. Susanna, if you watch it, hey girl. but I love Issa Rae. And so when she started to say that I'm no longer protecting Issa Rae because Issa did not protect me, I felt so heartbroken because a lot of times it's your support that keeps you going. And I think she even mentioned at some point in the interview, she still has great friends, right? But she and Issa were real friends. And she feels like through all of these trials, she felt like she lost Issa because Issa was not protecting her. Even when she got shut out of that, I actually remember watching that live, which was crazy. I forget, wait, was it 2020 or 2021 when she was trying to go into that party and they wouldn't let her in? I think it was Issa's party. I remember her even talking about that. And so in the interview,
yeah, it was a Black Emmys party.
The Black Emmys party. And she even goes on to talking about like how she didn't feel like her friend protected her. This is where she messed up. People ain't gonna protect you if they don't care, right? And I feel like maybe Issa showed her plenty of times she didn't care, but Amanda just had such maybe a great heart where she was just like, oh no, she got me this time, and she put her trust in her. She put her trust in it so much, right? And to the point where she hated her, where she failed her, right? And then it made me even think about like people in general. So outside of Amanda, like how many of us have had friends or just relationships where we're just like, okay, I'm going to keep trusting this person. Oh, they keep letting me down.
Because you are the type that see the good in people. That's what she said. She said, I'm a type where I'm a happy person and, I want everybody to be loved and I want to be loved. So we all in a good space. I always want to see the good in people. So I'm giving chance after chance thinking that, that was just a mistake or F up. Let's try again type of thing. So in this case, she did talk about there was many times, she didn't share all of the times, but she was saying there are many instances where, something rubbed me the wrong way. And there's some I spoke on, but there's others I was like, maybe she was just having a bad day, or, maybe that's just how she works, where she was like, oh, you brought up like the Awkward Black Girl. She had a platform and Amanda Seales had her own show and it went on to the platform that Issa Rae had. And she didn't do anything for the show. It was just carrying like the platform for it. And she asked like Issa to promote the show and she did not. So like tweet about it or whatever about it. And she didn't. So she was just like, that didn't change like my view or my character of her. It just made me see that that's probably how she works. But I feel like if you're a girl's girl and somebody asks you to promote my thing, what did I take off of you? What are you losing off of that? Mind you didn't create the show, but it's on your platform. Just like how you create other shows to this day, you promote them. If this is on your platform, you have a radio station, you got a platform of different shows, you might not be starring in it or whatever, and you promoting it. Why is that any different? That this show is on here. If you're so for Black people and I'm rooting for everybody Black, what was it going to take out of you to say, hey, check out this show on our platform? Right. So yes, there was like the naivety of, Amanda Seales talking about this was not, she didn't see her character changing. She just thought that's how Issa works. That was one of the first signs that would have been like, what was that about? Right? Because you then continue to go working on a whole show with her. And throughout that show, you've seen signs of where she was just like cold shoulder with you. Right. And you keep going back and begging her time and saying, like, I need understanding from you. I need validation. I need you to understand that this wasn't okay. What are you supposed to be doing? I loved when she brought up, that the lack of protection, and some comments were like, protect you for what? That's where the ignorance comes from, where you really not understanding the concept of what's going on. Yeah. She had Vanessa as your publicist, and you have this woman here, Amanda, as your employee as well, a character on this show. What do you mean you're not going to protect her, or this has nothing to do with you? right? So
That was crazy.
where did the beef even come from? One, and then two, when it does show up as conflict in your workplace, you as a boss don't know how
The
to do resolution and
leader.
mediation,
That's
and
so
you're
that's what
supposed to
kept
be a
blowing
girl's
me.
girl. You're supposed to be a girl's girl, and on top of that, you a whole employer. So how do you handle sexual harassment, conflict resolution, discourse, and all of them shit that in your workplace? If you would look at her and say, that's my publicist, but I didn't have nothing to do with it. And now she's coming back again weeks later, sabotaging me in my career, and you still don't feel like this is harassment and this is slander and that you should be doing something about it, having a sit down, hashing out whatever. So back to your point of you feel like she didn't do anything because she didn't care. We don't have the history of why she started not caring about her, but it just seems like she just didn't like something about her, right? There are certain things that people are just gonna stand on, whether she don't drink or she's not a partier, or she seemed uppity, and she claimed that she not, right? She just has a different way of speaking. She carried herself a different way. And why does that make me unlikable that I don't want to be with sitting down with your crew drinking and carrying on? People have different friends for different environments, different
Yeah.
settings. So why couldn't it be a situation like that? Instead, you have your publicist having so much power over the guest list and like employees, other employees, as if she's not an employee herself. What kind of business are you running? Right?
And that's what made me so sad, because this was my first time. And again, we can only take things with a grain of salt, but this was the first time of me hearing that this was Issa's demeanor, and you're supposed to be a friend. So and this is why work friendships sometimes get a little iffy, especially if you are in a position of power. But either way, take that aside, she did have to say, if her publicist was just like, oh, this person is not coming on to the getting in because I don't like them, Issa should have been like, hold on, but that's my girl, Mariah. Hold on, let's be so real. If I have a party and maybe I got Janet over here who got the guest list, and Janet decides that, all right, I don't want Mariah coming to the party, and you come to me, if I'm like, oh, that don't got nothing to do with me, what would you do?
I would be confused, just as she was like, I didn't know we had no beef. So I would be flabbergasted, like, excuse me, like, let me speak to the person that invited me here. What's going on? Right? I would be like, excuse me, Janet, you know what I mean? Real quick. Janet, you know what I mean? I bet you come on to my face now.
Just like
where
that.
is Felicia? Where is Felicia? Because like she brought up, she was humiliated. She was assaulted, right? Pushed out of the way without having put hands on nobody else, right? Issa was not the one who was the one that invited her, but she had something to do with it because the publicist is the one who's stopping me at the door, right? She was invited by Jesse Williams. He obviously in the party, so he didn't come to intervene. But where do you get off as the publicist to tell me that I'm not invited to this party because you don't like me? When did publicists start getting this much power? Right? And I'm not saying she's no assistant and then she ain't got no role, but stay in your place, because now if this is the boss and I don't have no beef with her, that means that sounds like a personal issue. That sounds like it has nothing to do with work and you bringing it into work. So now it becomes your responsibility, Issa, right? So yeah, so to hear everybody else saying they have all these great experiences about Issa and how Shannon Sharp brought up Lil Rel was like she's creating platforms and everyone in the set just be women. She's a woman empowerment, blah blah blah. I don't know who else is coming out to talk about her in this way, but this definitely gave a little bit of a crutch for her, because it was like, oh, it's kind of like Amanda Seals' words against mine and everybody else's. So who they gonna believe?
Yeah.
You must believe everybody every time they have some type of qualm.
A grievance, yeah.
Because what does she have to gain from lying? Right?
Yeah.
And if she was lying and creating such a toxic environment, as she said, why you never fire me? If I was so bad,
and that's why
wouldn't you fire me? So that's why I'm like, people are sitting here just gung ho on the wrong things, and she's speaking like procedurally. If this is going on and I'm creating such a hostile environment, like
why
these would be the ways to go about it. So it's just not adding up, right? It's not adding up how people are going about these things, how people are treating her, the words they're spewing out, and then there's no care in what is going out because it's landing on ignorant people's ears who are just taking it in. Well, I heard she was so and so blah blah. She was smearing this other man campaign and da, 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 da. Like, you heard from where? Did you hear it from the horse's mouth? Yes, I said this. I could back it up with my chest that I said. Did you hear her talking like that? You know, it's just like, well, she's not gonna say it, like, because she didn't do it. You know,
Right.
I don't know. It's just so hard for people to see people thriving. Like, it's just sad. It
And
really is.
and at the end of the day too, I do still hold respect for Amanda, because even through that whole situation with Issa, she still acknowledged, like, yeah, she's doing great things. Like, she's still putting people on, so to speak, right? And she's still making content. Like, she is in a space where Black women never really had this opportunity before. So she's becoming one of the not ringleader, what do you call it? Like spearheading this movement for Black women, which is great. But then it just leads me to the point where it's just like, well, I'm just wondering, like, how is Amanda still putting trust in, like, the people that she's meeting in the industry, right? Because
all brings that up. That she got low self-esteem, and then she's always looking for people to accept her. So it really is like, I'm gonna go. She don't go in blind, but it's just like she's not reading the room, right? She's not reading the social cues, and she's not expecting to go in feeling hurt. So she don't have those guards up where it's like, wrong can happen to me here. I think she's learned from that now, because as she started this, the Shannon Sharp interview, she's like, I need to get to a hug. And, I don't really do all of that off the bat now, so she's cautious of like who's entering her space. And that could be because of these experiences where people have showed their ass multiple times. But I can get where she's coming from, where you want to start people off on a clean slate. Like, you don't know them from nowhere. They didn't do nothing to you. You have some kind of, street smarts to be aware of things. But when you're trying to make a connection, you're genuinely wanting to give them the best foot forward. And life is teaching her and showing her that, just people off rip ain't shit.
Yeah. It makes me sad. It really does. And then just to kind of move to now the excuse me, the spaces where she starts to talk about, like, her racial encounters or her racist encounters, right? And I want to say, for the few instances that she did talk to Shannon Sharp about, it could have just been me, but I did feel like he was trying to he was combative. Like, I feel like he was just trying to, like, disregard her experiences, and that's
or not. They were racist when she's like, that's what racist was for me, and you're like, but anybody could do that. First of all, for him to say, have you never said anything like, dumb as a kid? Like, those are kids. I could see if it was an adult talking to you crazy, but these kids are just kids. And I'm like, that is where we went wrong as a society. That's where we go wrong as parents. Parents can make mistakes because parents be wanting grace, knowing that there's no book for parenting, right? So parents can make mistakes. Where do you feel like kids learn, inappropriate language, defamatory language, racist language, and then grow up to be adults using said language? Where do they learn it from? You think kids just pop up on the earth by themselves?
It took everything in me not to turn it off, right? Because it felt so ignorant. And I almost felt like, whoever, I don't know if he produces his own show, but I was just like, did the producers tell him to be this way with her? Because it's just like, do you not, how does a kid learn to be racist? Be so for real, right? They have to learn from their parents. Ignorant. They have to learn from their environment. So if a kid is racist, they are racist. That's what it is.
Because, like you said, like, kids are just saying whatever they hear from parents. That doesn't mean they know what it is. And then her argument back was like, but I know how it lands, right? I know how it feels when it hit me. And I'm sure that kid, if they don't know what their parents said to them, and they go off and repeating it, just the reaction that you get from the person you spewed it at alone can let you know, like, maybe that wasn't good, because, they didn't laugh. They didn't
for real though. They were like 7 and 8, right? 8, 9, 7, 8, 9.
One of her examples, she was 10. Like, these are kids that are in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. You're talking about, like, you are articulate, to a standpoint at that time. We're not talking about a 3-year-old that's out here saying, like, the N-word, right? You're talking about kids that are in grade school and having the capacity to know that calling someone out of their name is inappropriate, right? And where are they learning that language? From home, from the neighbor, whatever. You're learning it from the community, and it's not okay, right? So yes, kids can say things that are hurtful, are mean, and we acting like kids as young as elementary age school are not committing suicide. So where is he getting off to say that kids are not racist and that kids are not
I don't
consuming
want to
bullying
believe he's this
behavior?
ignorant. I don't want to believe
No,
he's this ignorant.
I would believe it. He might
I don't want to
miss
believe
you as Club Shay Shay, but ain't nobody telling him, how to perceive things. I think in this interview where he went wrong was that he kept interjecting with his own experience, and looking dumb instead of having her express what she had to say, and then him kind of coming up with a question or some type of, validation after that, right?
she
Validation
should have
don't
went
mean
on Cam's podcast. That's where she should have went. But
something, and maybe this will deter her from going on things for a while, but she gonna have to assess because she went on this thinking she was getting the same treatment as everybody else, as she stated. But I guess everybody else ain't like you. You are very unique, and you go into this space with this man who's just not prepared to talk to you about things from your point of view. He was acting like he was one of the people in the comments, coming out. So I got her in front of me now, y'all. So we all gonna talk to her about, so why you saw it that way? You don't think that that's
he had
just
an
some her
agenda.
being mad, da 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 da. And then she's like, hold up, why do I feel like you're questioning my experience like it ain't valid? And he's like, well, I'm not trying to do that, but you got to see that the world works like XYZ, da da da. The world works how she see it at the age of fucking 8. How are you gonna tell a child what she didn't experience?
So this is actually a good example, okay? Let's say there is an 8-year-old out there who is constantly being detested about their experience. That creates such a negative foundation for them. Those
For
kids
sure.
that go ahead that are told, like, so imagine somebody's telling Amanda, oh, they're not being racist, or they like you, they're just playing, but she knows
When
deep
she get that
down.
information later on, she gonna be like, that's just how people treat me because I thought it was okay.
Exactly. And this foundation that, God, thank God, Amanda's not 8 or 10, right? But this happens to 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, kids every day. And then those kids who are being minimized, like their feelings are being minimized, or what their thoughts are, they're being minimized. They grow up to be adults who become people pleasers. They become very insecure. I mean, Amanda she has low self-esteem for another reason, or probably in part of that reason, right? Because she never really shared what her experience was like once they would say that. Like, I don't know if she would go home and cry, if she would go tell her mom. I don't know if she told the producers. If she did share it, then I missed it. But still, how was she internalizing all of that? And now as an adult, actually kind of makes sense as I'm piecing these all together. She wants people to be comfortable. She wants to be liked. She doesn't want to be that Black girl that, although she's okay with it, two sides, right? But she doesn't necessarily want to be that angry Black girl, or, oh, you just got this because you were Black. Because I think at some point she started talking about what do you call it, affirmative action and things like that, right? Where it's just like, hey, I want to be seen more than the color of my skin. But so she has like this internal battle as well going on for her, where it's just like her experiences from childhood do play out in her adulthood, right? But I think
For a lot of us. Yeah,
she's
for a
taking the
lot of
resources to stand against it. But it does happen for a lot of us, like as we speak in our grown big up age. So it's
I
life
feel
important. Yeah.
just all of her experiences are not even far-fetched either. Like everyone is coming for her saying like, you always in a problem, somebody always not, liking you, or why you always in the news for something negative. Well, first of all, no one's perpetuating the positive, right? When she paying off, the school tuition for kids out in Africa and whatever trip she done made there, nobody's putting that on blast, right? Paying off her mother mortgage and loan debt free and all of that. Nobody's putting that as TSR positives.
It's not a good headline.
so like what are we talking about here when we're like it's always something with her, so again, I think she's in the spotlight for one thing, and because we already know her for this one thing, that's what people use to just continue that trajectory on of negativity. And that's unfortunate because it's almost like she can't never like clean the slate.
Yeah.
And I think she was trying to use this interview to bring light to these situations. And you said something like she don't have a problem being that angry Black woman, but I think it's when it's called for. Like if you call me, angry Black woman because I'm out here standing for some good, oh well, but I don't go out my way trying to be labeled as such, right? I speak passionately. Does that make me, unprofessional? What is it? Like, why is it that we need to be likable by being so soft, as I was saying in the beginning? When you first meet somebody, it has to be like,
Yo,
hey,
hold
how
on, hold
are
on, hold
you?
on. Pause, Mariah.
How you
Pause.
doing?
You just hit something. Hold on. If you're comfortable, boundaries, okay? There was an instance, I can think of my own instance, but there was an instance where I remember you telling me maybe like 5, 6 years ago where you had your own instance where they were like, oh, somebody was calling you something in the workplace and you're just like, no, I'm just very passionate. Do you remember what I'm
Mhm.
talking about?
Oh, 5, 6 years ago, girl. Let me think
Okay.
about it. I think it's, I can resonate a little bit. I don't even a little bit, a lot of bit, with, some of the instances with, Amanda Seals in the professional space. I worked in like a nonprofit. And when we talk about those egos, you have superior who I just feel like they were in a place of like, they didn't want to work no more. We working from remote and we want to dictate how you operate things. This was, a department head who came onto the department, didn't know anything about a department. It just was restructured. She became a boss. But truthfully, I was carrying that shit, right? And then I got promoted. So then I was also a director, associate director under her. And, it was the passion, right? The passion of making sure that my department was successful, bringing on new hires, training them, molding them, inspiring them, having everyone feel comfortable and having a voice. You need to work with people in order to have the program and the operations be successful. And
Right.
she was the opposite. She was a dictator. She was like numbers and facts, and I don't even give a fuck about the well-being of the people. We need to get this program up and running. And I'm like, okay, you go tell them that. You go with that delivery and see who want to get up and work for you. So we agreed on certain things of how things should go, but there was a lot that we just was not the same on. I would write an email and hers would just be like very dry and do what the fuck I need to do. My email would be so upbeat and inspiring, direct too, but I know how to carry myself, right? I got comments back from one of our managers. That was such an inspiring email, Mariah. Thank you. Like, I really be taking some tips from you, whatever. So when I have to challenge this director on how she carries herself and how it may come off to us, when I have to challenge her about the support that she does not give me in order to run these 3 programs, 2 locations, on my own every day, I'm not about to be, hi, how you doing? You think you have a sec? Um, I'm just over here struggling and I would like some work and some help. And, like it starts off with me telling her, like, here's where we are, what's going on for us, what our successes are, some areas that we're struggling. And these are some of the reports from our staff. And what can you do to help us? Blah, blah, blah. When it goes on deaf ears or, she hasn't come back with a response and these things are timely, we're working in high level of care, in crisis mode, you need to be like on top of
On it.
things. And so when I don't feel like I'm getting the response that I need in the time, when I have all these people banking on me and I don't feel supported by you, I'm coming to you direct. Now, direct is not disrespectful. Direct is not unprofessional. Being passionate about my people, making sure we, exude the quality service that we provide. You will not fuck this up for me because you just came on and got another program under your accolades of directing, right? So that's where I started to be very like, we need this and I need this, right? I need this in order to continue to support all these people. I need some time for me to feel supported. Can I have a difference in my schedule or this accommodation so that I can continue to pump out all of this energy and success and all these things that you claim I have? How do you keep going, right? It'd be lonely at the top, as as Amanda Seals is talking about. It's like when you just can't understand it, when you on another level, people are really gonna be looking at you like, what is she doing?
Mm,
Or why are you complaining? Blah blah. Because it takes so much out of you to do
yeah.
great things, and people aren't understanding like, where's your support system?
Yeah.
I didn't have, right? So when I started telling her about, I disagree about this way you're going about XYZ, and historically, this is how we've done things. We've always tried to XYZ, da 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 da. Like, what do you think about XYZ? Just the way I was coming at her was not defying her character. It wasn't embarrassing her. It was just me telling you what it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
And what I know to be true, I've been in this department for many years. Don't act like, just very condescending is how she would come back. Right. So I've had that experience in the workplace of having to like dumb yourself down to these white motherfuckers to act like you deserve the title. Like some of them are in these roles because maybe, it's been years, but what have they actually been doing off the backs of the other people, your delegates?
Yeah.
So as a leader, you should be shining a light on the people that help you run this place, not just
Yeah.
sitting here dictating and being a bitch, right? And I'm gonna be the one to call you out on your bitchness, So that's what it was, is just calling her out on how I felt like she was handling people, how she just made it seem like it was a business and we don't give a fuck. Like, you need to stop taking things so personally, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you are asking people to do hard work and not care about how they are in the work. It's just certain things she did not have about her and made everybody else feel miserable. And then that comes back on me as I work with them on a daily basis. Right. So there is care in how you treat people.
Yeah.
And not everybody can navigate those situations without coming out as you the angry Black girl. So
Yeah.
what is that about, right? Why is it that we can't come in these spaces, express ourselves directly, and not be like, well, shit, you told me, you schooled me, thank you for that, right? It's not that. It'd be like, you fresh, you unprofessional,
Listen.
like this, da, 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 da. Like, ain't nobody coming at you like nothing. You're just used to your yes women under you. You are used to people not responding at all. You are used to people crying in the back because the confrontation was too strong that you gave them. But I'm gonna challenge you. Just like how you can fix your mouth to be bright to me, I will
You're
come back
gonna
and say,
dish it back. Yeah.
at what point was that necessary?
Right.
And at what point did I feel like I had to take these measures? I took these measures because of XYZ. I could stand on everything I did, right? I could stand on everything I said, but because it's coming out so direct and confident, oh, you brazen, oh, you're bright,
You're
oh, you're
right.
disrespectful,
Yeah. The disrespect. But see, and so even that, so like even I feel like I saw a lot of myself in Amanda, as the rest of the world said, but I haven't really seen myself in Amanda because I had my own individualized major too. Big up UConn for the stress that it put me through. I had the racial encounter where I was told I was being disrespectful, and you remember those days, Mariah, where people was trying to set a sister up. And thank God that I released myself from that situation, but people's experiences are so real. Like, we all go through racism. We all go through periods of sexism, right? Because at some point she even talks in her interview about sexism. We all go through these things, and just we have things stacked up against us. So why are we as other people making it harder for ourselves, right? Why can't we just see that, okay,
Believe it.
like maybe she did have this racial encounter, right? And then him as a man, I'm not even gonna get into that. It was tough
It's
to
not
watch.
even maybe. It's more like, why do we have these words and these things exist anyways? Sexism, racism, all the isms, they exist because they are happening. And when people share about them happening, why is the first thing that you run to is, well, what did she do? What did they do to cause that? We're talking about someone where they're sexually assaulted. The first thing that many people are in the comments are like, well, look what she was wearing.
Hot
The
mess.
rape culture is like, it's like we're not gonna wear, like we're still in 10 years from now, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like it's the same cycle. Like, so when is it that we are going to like tear that page out of the book, crumble the shit up, and start afresh with a better understanding of like why we talk about these things and why these things are actually happening?
I know
That's
when
where we really need to be at, because
people
what
lack
I wear,
self-awareness though.
what I wear don't have no permission for you to touch me. Let's talk about the lack of self-control you have on your part.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense, right? When I say that I have experienced discrimination or racism, believe me, because that's what it made me feel like, and we're calling it what it is because there's 5 other people in the room, and none of them are getting that treatment. Believe it when I say it, because then
So
why would I
how
want
do we
to feel that?
address
Why would
though?
I
How
want to
how we gonna
experience
address the Karens though? The Karens that are like, no, this was I think I seen Amanda's post the other day
that? As if
where some lady in the park was going off. They're attacking me. Nobody was
all
touching
of
her.
the people who are around her, not surrounding her. She walks into their space. They're, 2 or 3 feet away from her because she walked into their space, standing there with the dog, calling the cops to say they're here attacking her. I'm Jewish. I feel unsafe. What does that have to do with anything, right?
So, but
They're
then
having
how do we verify that? Not verify. How do we justify that? Because we are so what we are preaching. So the adversary here is
They need
like,
to have laws against these things, right? There's a lot of people in comments that are saying, so why can't we have, when it's against the law to fake an emergency? Is this a law? I need to go back and research all that, but we need to know, is this a law in all 50 states plus that it's against the law to call in a fake emergency, right?
is it not? It is though. Didn't that girl Corey, whatever that girl is, that it disappeared on? She disappeared on the highway.
She got more than just that charge. I don't even know if that was the charge. It was more of like some like fictitious instance with a child or something like that, and calling a nuisance, like obstructing officers because you took them out of the way to come do XYZ. So I don't know if it's actually like federal law in all of these places, because it needs to be, and it needs to be upheld to the highest degree, and that needs to also be shown on media so that people know their place, right? Yeah. It's not uncomfortable. It's not a crime to feel uncomfortable, right? You walking into a space, you're Jewish, they're having their gathering, they never walked upon you for you to feel uncomfortable or unsafe. You walked past with your freaking dog and then saw what they were doing, and you're like, I feel threatened. I feel like I'm going to get hurt. I'm a Jewish woman. They're here protesting, or they're doing XYZ. I feel unsafe. They're coming at me. They're coming at, what are they doing? Right? Somewhere along the line, you were given permission to show your ass all this time, and now you do it as your adult age and at the expense of other people's livelihood, right? So those are the people that we need to weed out, and justice needs to be served, because that's the only way they will learn to stop fucking with people, right? If I'm over here minding my business and you don't like something I'm doing, don't touch me, right? They lack boundaries. They lack boundaries and understanding of like what is right from what is wrong. Like you said earlier, people have this vision of what is okay to them, and then they just run with it. So it's the same thing where you can learn, like, this person is colored and they're dirty. So when you see them, don't play with them. And now the kid goes to the fucking park and says, you're colored, you're dirty. My mom said I can't play with you. And you just grow up learning the same shit, saying it just like that. You're colored, you're dirty. My mom said I can't
Hold
play
on,
with
but
you.
watch this. Now all colored people are dirty.
Yeah.
Because
we know who's saying colored. Who is saying colored in 2024? We need to do better. But that's the language, right? It's those same things, and then it's permissible. It's like, okay, you could talk like that. Certain circles you get into, you never have any conflict with people, and then you get into these situations, you don't know why you're getting, conflict, because all you said was what you learned back in the day, and it seemed to be fine. So here you are now calling the cops on a certain set of people because you think it's okay to do that because them dirty, right? Like, what is it? Right? So you have learned, it's been ingrained in you, conditioned to feel like that when you see other than yourself, they are a threat, right? And they go the extra mile to feel like this world is theirs, so that they now place no boundaries, right? They touch you, they grab at you, they smack your phone, they do all these things acting like they got permission over your body, right? I ain't counting on a day, but the day somebody feel like they could come into my space and violate in that way, it's just, I would be flabbergasted, because we share this place, we share this space. I am an American like you. I don't know where you come off thinking that you own this fucking land, this house.
Even if you're not American,
what you think? No, because that's their basis. That's why I'm saying it. Their basis is that I'm an American.
This is my
land. I do this. We own this. You go back to where you came from. You can only say that because you're looking at my skin thinking I came from somewhere else. If only you know where the fuck your parents came from, where your granny and their granny after that came from. They was on this land. Who was really here? Let's not get into all of that, because they don't really want to hear about that, right? They want to continue their narrative. Why is it that you want to continue a narrative that's not true? So going back to why y'all want to perpetuate shit that's not true? When we gonna let the rumors die? As soon as the name gonna come up, you're always gonna say, "Oh, she lied on that man." As soon as her name come up, you're always gonna say, "She can't keep a man." As soon as the rumor come up, "Oh, she always be talking about something. She ain't never be happy. Oh, she just needs some dick. Oh, she did it." It's always all of that. Why is it that? Why is that not? Oh, she was doing her thing on the real. She was talking that shit. Oh, she was always doing this. Oh,
The
why is she all the things that
comments.
she do for us in other countries? All of the allyship that she has and the awareness, why are we not honoring her for XYZ? Why is she not in these Black Girl Rock spaces and you know the NAACP like this and this? Why is she not in these spaces? Right? Where at some point did I get blackballed for being a truth teller?
Because they don't, conformity is not popular. Or no, sorry, I said it backward. Conformity is
Yeah.
popular, right? And she is a she's a non-conformist. So non-conformity is not popular, right? And it's just
And I'm saying that's why we need to break those things down.
yeah.
We're talking about like it will take a lot of muscle and power and banding together to be able to make a force that can stand up to the actual forces that control these things. But that's exactly what needs to happen because everyone is looking at it as we are in desperate times. It's not inflation, COVID, all this just came up to us. We can't afford to not live. And the way how we see it now is we live by the rules of these people.
Yeah.
The man, the white, the whoever is in charge. So if we're not on that, I'm sorry, Lord. Oh, you know, I'm gonna skip on that moral because ooh, that check coming. Like that's how people are acting, right?
Yeah.
And when she is at a point in her life where I don't have to fake the funk, I'm grown as fuck, 40 plus. I done did a lot of my time. I lived in my truth, and it's got me this far. So I don't need to bend over for you and your antics to move through life. If all of y'all found y'all asses in that space, you would be doing better.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all living in this, you know, hit and run, paycheck to paycheck, stressed here, like I pitting it in, the this and the this work not going well, all these negative things that people want to bring down as stress on themselves, you know, calling them stressors, right? They are too busy to see that I can create this lane or I can have this opportunity, you know, to really get away from what is controlling us.
Right.
So now I have to do whatever to meet that need. Now I got to do whatever to get in the graces of said people because they call the shots.
Yeah.
At the risk of your values, your morals.
But then that's
That's
when you
what
question, is that truly their moral? That's why I said once you step out of your values, don't tell me this is your value because you're actually saying otherwise. You
Mhm. But
prioritize
I
something
want
higher
to
than
see the
yours.
Avenue Foundation. Let's talk about that, right?
That
When we
too.
go back to that trauma conversation in relationships, she brings up, I think my life would look a lot different if I was raised with my father. Though a brilliant man, he might have had autism too, because the way that he was so stringent and things like that, I don't think I would be as verbose and as articulate as I am and free spirited as my mother allowed me to be. And so and on top of that, the trauma from that is because I wasn't raised by a man. I didn't know the example of a man to go looking for. So I just had any and everybody in my space. You know, I'm over here taking care of men as this big woman with house, land, all these jobs. I'm taking care of this man in my house who refused to get a job, and I still had him in the house, right? So she didn't even know what that looked like. So when we're going back to people don't have no foundation, people don't have no foundation because of the lack of like actual parenting. So although we're talking about poverty and stressors at this point, that there's generations of poverty and lack of resources, education, you know, tapping into what can make your life better. You just be moving with the motions, lack of care, lack of prevention, all these things. And it goes into generation to generation, and people have to just make do, and you just come out as this ignorant person, and we trying to learn later on in life that we was just doing the best we could, but what could I do better? We could have done better, right? So now you got kids and people raised up not knowing how to handle things in society, you know, and that's what she's talking about is I had this kind of life. Like you blaming me because this is how I was, like I experienced my life. This is the way I lived it. I was protected as a child. When I got to these certain spaces, people treated me this way. It's not anything that I did. It's more of that's how those people were raised. Now everyone's like she's not taking accountability. If she's telling you her experience and she was the one that was like, you know, wronged in this experience, what is she to take accountability for it? So in the interview, he brought up like, so you didn't do anything? Like, why would that person just come at you like that? Some people are just shitty people.
Yeah.
Right? And again, this is not like just back to back to back to back. Oh, everything just happens to Amanda. It's more of this happened at this age. 10 years later, this happened, blah, blah. But you play it as if every minute someone's just doing wrong to her.
That's why I said I don't want to believe he's that ignorant. I just can't. Or not even just him. I don't want to believe the world
Everybody
is
else,
that ignorant.
yes, everybody else is like that. And I'm just like, just because you see her talk about a certain platform or just angry or whatever, whatever, that means she always 24/7 angry, you know, because that's what it's looking like, right? When you change, when your brand or what you're pushing out is one thing, people just keep you in that box as a content creator, right? But at this point, she's like, so much negative going on in the world right now that we need to be aware of. I don't have no time to be laid up in no pool, sipping drinks or whatever, and showing out this greatest life that I have when so many people are dying. Children are dying. That's what I want to focus on. And so you go on my platform, and now you're like, she's so negative. Every day she wake up just angry. So like she not nothing else for that. Well, like it's just taxing. It's so da da da. That's why I said you have the option to not consume that, you know, at any given time. But that doesn't mean what she's saying is not important and is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So when we learn that balance in our life, that we have an option to follow who, follow who, follow who, follow who, you can have a balanced consumption of information and entertainment. But you're not going to turn that into she's just so this, she's just so that, she's just da 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 da. Take in what she's saying. Learn a few things. Learn. Nobody on the internet want to learn nothing. As soon as a little paragraph with 5 words come, that's too much.
That's too
Paraphrase
bad.
me. Somebody summarize. I'm not going to read all of that. Da, da. It's like we create in a society of dunce people. The literacy levels on the internet is staggering.
What'd you call it? They call it it's like a 30-second culture or something like that, where it's just like I only got, or 5-second culture. It's like I only got
Yeah,
5
the
seconds.
instant gratification.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
it's
when
just
people
like
are getting dumber by the minute. You don't understand that what somebody is putting out there is for a reason. You don't understand like the bigger purpose of what someone's doing. You don't understand, bless you. You don't understand like the fact that you could turn off this thing. You don't understand that you don't have to consume this thing. You know, like somebody put something up and you're like, why did you do that? Da, da, da. You don't understand like the world don't work just like how it is in your backyard. There are 8 million damn near people in the world. Not everyone's going to do everything the same way, right? So everything is so absolute to a lot of people. We don't do that. Never. We don't do that. Da, 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 da. Yeah, but this person over here, 10 miles away, or even in another country, can make the same dish and have a different flavor in it, or something like that. You know, it's similarities. You know, you don't get to knock someone else saying like, "Oh, well, this is how my family does it." Who gives a fuck about you and your family when me and my family do it like this, right? Like, you know, it's just that's what people need to understand. It's just like differences. People don't understand differences. They don't know how to understand. You like you want to conform. Like that's the big, you know, the ironic thing here is that you're talking about people conforming, but yet people don't understand like differences, right? What are we actually conforming to when you don't even know yourself? What are you conforming to when you don't have no foundation? You're just here, there, everywhere. What does that do for us?
it's sad. It
And
truly
then
is sad.
somebody doing something different or something similar, it's like you want to take onus, you want to take some ego part of it. Well, that's not how you make that. That's not how you do this. Everything is just so lashing out. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So I feel like everything she's talked about was, you know, I'm exhausted because I'm trying to figure out how these people know me more than I know myself. You know, I'm exhausted because every time I do something good, I don't ever see that out here. You know, but every time I'm out here fighting for the people, you know, all of a sudden I'm difficult. I'm negative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get celebrated for XYZ, but this person does this fun thing for 1 year and all of a sudden they on Time magazine, you know? So like, what is it? You know, I'm just going to go with the people that celebrate me. And when she said that, right, she was not expecting to go on everybody's platform. People took the clip and went off and saying, oh, Amanda, you know, is wondering why she's not invited to all these places. So, you know, it must be because of who you are. You've been known to do this. You've been known to do that. But do you know me yourself? Have you heard the
No.
story from my mouth? Do you actually know what went into that? Or you just know bits and pieces and you want to put it in an article and make me look like I ain't shit? You know, so we just need to do better. And I think Shannon Sharp could have done better in researching her. I think that he could have done better in the delivery in the beginning. I don't know if it was her intention to bring up autism spectrum disorder just right off the bat. I think it was a newly thing that she was diagnosed with. So I think she was just, you know, like many other people, when they have something going on with them, they finally get answers. They're very relieved. You know, they feel like, okay, now I can live in this. I can understand it. It can help me manage something that's been going on with me. So she off the bat was just like, I'm evolving. You know, I realized like how my brain is functioning is, contributed to this diagnosis. He goes like, explain that for me. What is that? And is that like you're trying to excuse the things that you've been going through with this disorder? You can be gifted and not have a diagnosis. And, it was like, where are we going with this? Like, so that's where it felt combative. That's where it felt questioning. And that, had she started the interview with not even bringing that up, maybe people wouldn't come off the bat thinking, oh, it was a crutch and it was an excuse, but it is her life. And I wish people would start respecting mental health, because using that example of there are a lot of things that people go through and they don't have answers for it. It could be chest pains, aching, something else, and you keep going getting testing, all of that, and everything's coming back fine, but you're still feeling the pain, you're still aching.
Yeah.
People long for answers. When you finally hear that, the diagnosis is XYZ, you're like, that's what was going on with me. Now I can do XYZ. Now I can live this certain way. Now I got to do this certain diet. Now I have to take care of myself this way. Now I got X amount of, years to live. Whatever the case it is, it's the same thing where she says, I now understand like the load of issues and the problems that I was facing is attributed to the fact that my brain functions a different way. And that ain't nothing to excuse. That is nothing to, be light about.
Yeah.
Oh, you just did that yourself. You just did this to da da da. You're not really like autistic. That's like offensive to the people who actually have autism. Like now you just sound fucking ignorant because it is a spectrum, right? You got nonverbal, high functioning, everything in between, right?
And
You have
people don't
someone who can look
understand
at you
that.
and function just like a functioning alcoholic. What are you
Yeah.
talking about here? That it's not, autism is not crippling. It doesn't have to look like that. She brought up her examples, something like I'm putting everything in a row. I'm always fidgeting. I'm always needing to be clear and direct. I always need information before I can proceed. Those are neurotic instances of this neurodivergence that she's talking about that a typical person probably won't need as much to be able to do what they need to do. Why is that not respected? Right? So that's when I said earlier that he came off like, somebody in the comments just like mad ignorant, like, oh, like, she about to come on my show, like I'm about to ask her for y'all. He came off in that way of like, but so you don't think that it was because XYZ why people were acting like that? Like, why would you not think that way? The world worked like this. So like why
He
you
was
feel like
fishing
you
for
should
something.
either way?
Yeah.
I think he could have done a better job of validating, her experience. And, if he wanted to bring any like kind of like highlight to autism spectrum disorder, that was not the way to go about it. I think when he asked her what it was and her explaining it, then he could have said, how has that impacted you? When you said that you have the diagnosis, what were some of the criteria? What were some of the symptoms that you had that alluded to you now getting diagnosed, right? That is how you provide information and then spread, more information or a new situation to your audience instead of making it look like, bitch, that's a crutch. Like, are you sure? Like, you can be gifted and you can, you can act like you got some sense and not have no autism. Like, let's not blame autism now. Like, that's how I felt like he was coming at her.
He was
And it
acting
was
like
just
they
a
were
shame.
they were mutually exclusive, like, but like they can both happen at different times. Like you can be
Mhm.
gifted and have autism, but you can also
That's
have
what she
both,
said.
you
That's what she
know.
said. She said, yeah, hell yeah, because I am too. So he was really trying to say, like, girl, like you could be smart and you don't have this diagnosis. Because to him, again, it feel like he was saying it in a way like the diagnosis or a mental condition is crippling. So he was kind of saying, like, we know you're not that. Well, we know you're smart. So what are you trying to say? Like, just because you have a talent don't mean you got a diagnosis. And she's like, well, both of them can exist.
Yeah, like
I can struggle with this, blah, blah. It's not no excuse. But if my brain is wired this way, now I need to learn how to deal with that. I need to understand how it does land to other people and, taking accountability for that. I think where she talks about, like, I'm learning that, how I intended it to come out, it didn't show up like that. And so then I have to deal with those repercussions. But that doesn't mean that I should be vilified for, the intention when I tell you that I'm caring about people. I
right.
am for people. I am XYZ for people. Yeah, my delivery might have been passionate or strong, but I'm just telling y'all, like, man the fuck up. I'm coming with the tough love. I'm telling y'all we do deserve better and we need to do better as a people. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
Do you, so as a last point, with
Hmm.
even her diagnosis of autism disorder, sometimes I dabble on the internet, on social media, and sometimes I
Hmm.
don't. And I think I was saying before we started recording, I was on like these message Facebook. It was like Facebook group for
Hmm.
a lot of other clinicians, and they were just basically talking about like, well, these clinicians were talking about other clinicians who were talking about the diagnosis, and
Okay.
how they were upset that clinicians were, there's like this big divide where some clinicians are like, it's okay for them for people to diagnose yourselves, and others are just like, no, you need a professional diagnosis. And I was just wondering, like, from the research you found, how do you feel about this big divide that is now in the clinical world? Because they're not even upset about the interview. They're just like, well, now people feel like it's okay to diagnose themselves, and other people are just like, okay, but what's the problem? Right. And I'm talking about big up people are just,
Yeah.
clinicians are just
I
kind of
think,
going at it.
yeah, I think it depends on the diagnosis that we're talking about, right? A lot of these diagnoses require an evaluation, going through the criteria as well in order to then land the diagnoses. Um, ASD, so autism spectrum disorder, is like this, onset at childhood. The diagnosis comes usually and typically at that time, and it comes through an evaluation. So the research that I've been looking at recently does not tell us that there is an official evaluation for the onset of autism in adults, right? It's typically something that you catch or you observe or you see in a child, right? So research is still developing itself for adults, and I think that's why this is one of those disorders where people are self-diagnosing because they know something ain't right, whether they are knowing it or other people are seeing it. I'm just not acting what's typical. And so you're starting to go through the diagnoses, where there are newly developed by individual practitioners developing testing for this same reason, or you're going through the diagnoses through the DSM and seeing what you meet criteria for. If you do that, and you know that this is, creating marked and distinct distress in certain settings of your life, then yes, you meet the criteria for this diagnosis, right? But we're not telling people or not promoting in this podcast for everyone to go and diagnose themselves with all kinds of things. What we're saying is there are some diagnoses that require a level of testing, and some of these were only for children, right? It's like RAD. You don't have RAD onset as an adult, right? You have this attachment disorder from a child as a baby in infancy, traumatic stages. So it's not, fair to say that, her diagnosis is not credible because she gave it to herself. It's more of she started putting things together. People were talking about this could be where things are for her. She's gone through years of just being so different, and people seeing her in this other light that she's like, let me look into this. And if you look into something and you're meeting the professional criteria of it, we're not talking about Google and then, WebMD comes up and
Yeah,
like, okay,
no.
you had a cough. Okay, you got COVID. We're not talking about that, right? We're talking about this official diagnosis book, right? The DSM, that you can go through and see the criteria for. And should you meet the criteria, this could be very likely you have this thing.
Yeah. Or it could be a rule out, but
Yeah, it could be ruled out, but
or
I mean, like I said, it's a spectrum. So then there are, traits that you and I could have, but that doesn't mean like we have autism, right? Because you have to meet a certain amount of criteria for you to then say like, okay, I have this diagnosis. But we all could be having one trait or the other of something. Insomnia, restlessness. Does that mean that we got, PTSD? Does that mean that we have, you know, uh, psychosis? It doesn't mean that, right? So it really has to be that this is really causing significant distress in several areas, for this to be a diagnosis, a medical condition. And if that is what she has faced, then that's what she has faced. So I think people need to just respect other people's diagnoses. For her, she was even brave for bringing that up, right? Because a lot of people bring up their medical conditions and that's like their private issue. And
Mhm.
she had to bring that up to bring awareness to, this is how I function. It's not an excuse, but I'm learning this about myself and how to navigate through the world through this lens, because that's what's going to have to protect me. And y'all going to have to understand that there are actually people in this industry that struggle with this. and deserve to be in these same spaces no matter how they come off. Right? She's also doing the work on, I can't come off here just cussing everybody out, but she's also saying, when have I ever done that for y'all to rule me out? Right? So really just like turning the page and trying to understand. I hope people got from this interview a different part, of Amanda, and not she's just combative and she's all of this. There was a lot of people when the interview came out that didn't even watch the interview, but just went in with those preconceived notions and rumors. And so that didn't help the situation. So I thought it was a very interesting interview, hearing her childhood, hearing, growing up, the people that she's experienced, the relationships that have come up from it. And she's living a full rounded life. In the midst of people trying to tear that down and make her something she's not. So I can only imagine what that feels like, because I'm not in the spotlight, and having to address all these things can really break you down. So she is, really the strength of a woman, and she deserves her flowers. She deserves, praise and just recognition for what she's doing, whether it's hard or challenging, or her putting you onto something. She deserves the recognition for it.
She does. And I applaud her, right? Because she's been going through this for years now, right? It just now it's on magnified. And at some point she's always like in somebody's headlines, but she keeps pushing through, right? And I think even at one point somebody was just like, I don't know, these are kind of things that would make someone suicidal. That's what she said in an interview that somebody told her. And I was just like, they're not wrong, because to constantly have people come at your heads when you're not intentionally doing something wrong or negative, it's just people are just skewing the story. It's really tough. So hopefully, if you guys have no idea what we're talking about, go ahead and go watch that man's interview with Amanda C.
They gonna have
put
to
some
search that
respect for his name. Go watch Club Shay.
Club something.
Club something. With Amanda Seals, and y'all could go see what we're talking about after you finish watching this episode. So we've come to the portion or the segment where you're not a first time visitor, so we can't do the first time rapid fire, but I do have a new segment called For the Culture. Yeah, you'll be the second one doing this.
Okay.
The issue is the culture, so we're gonna have to switch it a little bit, okay? Typically what happens is I ask my guests, if you're like a second time person on the show, I'll ask my guests a series of a series of phrases for for them to guess what it means, right? So it's patois, right? But that's not gonna work here.
Why not? Yeah, I like that
because you already know patois. So what we can do is we're gonna flip the script and maybe just give 5 of your favorite phrases to the community that's watching and listening right now, that they can now take with them, so that they can take a little piece of our culture with them once they finish this episode.
Yikes, you're putting me on the spot here. There's so many things, and it comes naturally when I'm talking. So not even like 5 favorate things, but I think even just in this interview, using the term bright, we know the definition of bright.
Let's tell them. Bright. Yeah, okay. Do you want me to tell them, or you want?
Oh, I was going to say, so the definition of bright, as we know it, is, something, luminous, light. And when we are saying it, it's the same thing, but just audaciously, right? So when you're talking about,
a sentence, please?
About yes, so when we're talking about, a patois statement, that gal over there's a brighting, or, is she brighting, or them brighting, we're talking about them, that girl, she is, showing herself, like she's, passing her place, or she's being disrespectful, she's doing something that is just like not called for in the setting that we're in. Right. So when we talk about bright, or, that luminous, like she's really showing out and not in a good way. That's what that is.
All right. One
more. Another one. It's really like putting me on the spot. Like, I feel like if you gave me the word and I put it in a sentence, that's so easy to do. Phrase.
Maria too.
Okay. When we talk about Maria too, it's really just like, I respect you. I don't understand where you're coming from. Like, we're in agreement, and I don't always have to agree with you, but I respect you, the way that you're delivering things. I'm respecting your boundaries, what your mission that you're on, like, Maria too.
There you have it, guys. Now you go out in the world and carry a little culture with you. Okay.
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 Be
So
blessed.
I don't know if your boundaries have changed since last episode, but we preach boundaries. So go ahead and give the people your socials where they can reach you if they would like to continue the conversation with you after this episode.
Sure thing. So Instagram, she is Mariah. So that she is .Mariah. I do have another page, another business page, a lot of like coming soon things coming up with Perspective is a Bitch, also an Instagram handle. So you can go ahead and rack up those follows until you see some, a little information dropping. But that's where you can find me right now. So I am open to questions, page is public. So let me know if you have any questions, hit me up in the DMs, and I'll be in the comment section of this video. So definitely drop your questions
Drop them
there as well.
questions. Drop the questions, okay? She is I'm so sorry, but for those of you who don't know, Mariah is a licensed therapist as well. So she's not just talking out of nowhere. She knows what she's talking about.
We ain't never talking to just talk. We come up with some substance. We come with the laughs. We're coming with that intuitivity. So yeah.
Okay. Guys. So thank you, Mariah, for being here so much. We will probably see you again.
Listen, people want me. You know where to find me.
All right, so y'all, honestly, this conversation was so insightful, but honestly, there is a video that's gonna pop up right here, and y'all just might as well click it because there is more substance in this video. For those of you who are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Share this video with a friend, especially those that you have already shared the conversation with around Club Shay Shay and Amanda Seals. I love y'all so much, and I will see y'all on the next episode.